Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I grew up in the FLDS religion, which is a polygamous group that follows Warren Jeffs. I moved out when I was 18 years old, and we are back answering questions that you've all had about that community.
Yes, and if you want to hear more about what it was like for Sam to grow up in polygamy and ask us questions, please like, subscribe, leave comments and questions. That's how we decide what videos to make.
Yes, please.
So we are going to dive in. One question we've gotten a lot since we did a video on the show Escaping Polygamy and our reaction to that. A lot of people have asked about what security was like out there in the Colorado City, Hilldale area, and if there is such a thing as the God Squad.
Dun, dun,
So
dun.
for those of you who have heard that term before, the God Squad, it's normally referred to like what they're basically security, right? Well, I guess I should be asking you that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a nickname. I never heard of the God Squad when I lived out there. It wasn't something that they called it or referred to it as, but basically it was assigned people from the leaders of the church to keep an eye on everyone.
Okay, so they never called it the God Squad out there? That's just like a name that like outsiders have kind of named it?
Not that I've ever heard. No, I
Oh.
never heard it referred to as a God Squad when I was out there. So
Okay.
I don't know if other families kind of had that nickname for it or not, but not that I heard of. So if anyone else from out there knows, feel free to comment and correct me there. But I never heard it referred to as the God Squad. No.
Okay, so how was someone chosen to become like, was it security? What was the purpose of it? Was it to keep people in and locked up, like to keep them from leaving, or was it to keep outsiders from coming in?
So my opinion on it, based on what I saw and what I experienced, is it was just to, I guess, scare people. It was a scare tactic, and it was a kind of a way to make people feel like they were always being watched, so that they would never do something they shouldn't do. And it was also, in a way, it was to make people that came in, outsiders that weren't part of the community, to make them feel a little bit uncomfortable as well, because a lot of times you would see if somebody from outside of the community came in, and you would know right away because of the way they dress. These trucks, these big trucks with dark tinted windows, would kind of follow them around a little bit, and sometimes scare them right back out of town.
Yeah, that would be scary.
And so I think that's probably why some people had the notion that going out there to visit was dangerous, because of the way that it was. And some of it was just they thought it was, some people thought it was funny, like, oh, there's strangers here, let's scare them a little bit. But there was also the side of it that there were people that were actually assigned to kind of drive around and spy on things and see what was going on, and then report back to the leaders of the church.
That's what I was gonna ask. If there was like actual assignments, was
Yeah.
it like an official capacity, or was it just?
I guess I was never, I don't know, righteous enough, I guess, or whatever. But
Being the rebel that he was.
I never had anything like, I never had the position of God Squad or security of any kind. But there definitely was security. The leaders of the church had security, people that would be with them almost all the time.
Okay.
And I remember, for example, when we were, oh man, it was way back, several years before I moved out. We were in a meeting, and we were sitting in this meeting. It was a Sunday morning, or sorry, it was a Saturday morning meeting, and we would often have a Saturday morning meeting, and we would sometimes refer to it as the work meeting, because in those meetings, towards the end, we would be assigned certain projects to do around the community, the man work. Anyway, during this meeting, the FBI broke through the doors, rushing in to try to get some of the leaders of the church, because this was during the time that they were still trying to find Warren Jeffs. So they were after Warren Jeffs. They hadn't found him yet. He was on the top of the FBI's most wanted list.
Oh my gosh.
And so they broke in the meeting house while the meeting was going on. And they broke in right during the time that they were saying the closing prayer. So a lot of us were bowing our heads, closing our eyes, and we heard this commotion coming in through the doors. And by the time I looked up and saw, or to see what was going on, the leaders of the church that were sitting on the stand were gone. They had left because their security had warned them, hey, there's people showing up, they're after you, and just took them and ran out the back door. So they all got away.
Holy cow! Is that when they stopped having church meetings? Because there was no church meetings for a while, right? Even before
Well,
everyone kind of left that community.
well, yes, but even during the time that Warren Jeffs was on the run, I guess you could say, we were still having church meetings led by other leaders. It seems like that when Warren Jeffs realized he was never going to be able to come back to the community, that's when he said, well, this is my own opinion, but well, if I can't be there, then no one can have these meetings, you know. And,
Okay,
and he,
so
so
that's
he
when he
started
stopped
he
it.
started to get a lot more strict about what was allowed and not allowed during that time.
When the FBI came in, were they like guns a-blazing, or were they just walking in? Like, what did that look
Oh
like?
no, they were running. They were running to the stand, but they got there too late and didn't get anyone.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, did they arrest anybody?
No one. All the leaders that were on the stand were gone by the time they got there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was. They were prepared for it. I guess they knew that something like that might happen at some point. They had their escape route, and the rumor. I didn't actually see this with my own eyes, but I heard that they jumped on four-wheelers and jumped on four-wheelers and went down paths and things that other vehicles couldn't go on to make sure that they could
So they
escape.
were like super prepared.
Oh, they were ready to go. That's what I heard. I didn't see that from my own eyes. All I know is I was bowing my head for a prayer. I looked up and everyone was gone, and FBI was rushing the doors. So
Did the FBI like question other people, or did they just like go in, there wasn't anyone there, and they just like, that'd be so awkward. Like, do they just leave? Like, did
I don't
anyone
know
talk
what they
to
did.
them?
I wasn't, as a young boy, I didn't really want to know. I was just scared.
Scared.
And me and my family, we just left as soon as we could. So I didn't stick around to see what was going on. And I was so young, I probably didn't really
Fully understand.
care too much about, or understand fully what was going on, But I imagine they would have, definitely, because there were security people at the doors that they had to break through. I don't believe that they actually broke the doors down. When I say break through, I mean they just
Got through the security.
they got through the security that was at the door. So I imagine they would have questioned those people at least.
Gotcha.
But I don't know for sure.
Yeah, in order to get in at all.
To
they'd
tr-
have to have
yeah,
something.
and try to get any information on where these leaders would have gone. But it wasn't Warren Jeffs at that time. He was already on the run. He was who knows where. It was just other leaders of the church that might know where he is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so the leaders of the church obviously had security watching out
Yep.
for them. Was there security to keep people from leaving? Because that's a question we've gotten a lot. Like, were people ever physically restrained that you know of in your community? And granted, we've had a lot of comments. A lot of different communities handle things a lot differently. So there's definitely, like, I've heard the Kingston group, they will like actually try to physically restrain, just from what I've heard.
Yep.
So a lot of different groups, like, it's totally possible that these other groups do that. Not totally possible, like, I've definitely heard stories that that's
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
But in the FLDS community, did you ever see them like physically try to restrain them?
Nope, not that I saw personally. I did hear stories that when a woman would try to leave, for example, they wouldn't allow her to take her children with her, which obviously you can imagine how difficult that would be. And so there were difficulties with these women trying to get their children out with them. And they would actually take the children and just make sure that they stayed in a room and wouldn't let them come in contact with their mother to be able to take them with her. So that kind of stuff I know happened.
So like kind of more like keeping your children as hostage, which is
Right, but once you reached, and people that tried to leave under the age of 18, they would definitely, chase after them and try to bring them back. And I don't know if anything got super violent or if it was more just like a mental game of, if you leave, all this bad stuff's going to happen to you.
We know that happened
We know
a lot.
that
Definitely emotional.
Emotionally, it was very difficult for anyone involved, obviously, because leaving a family is not an easy thing to do. But anyway, so if you were under the age of 18, they would try to make sure that they would keep you there. And but once you turned 18, I believe, from my personal experience and from what I saw in the other areas of the community, no one was actually physically held back. No.
Yeah, they just did a lot of like emotional guilt trips.
Right.
And then lots of fear tactics
Yeah.
too. Especially, like you said, with the women, especially,
Yeah.
At least the men out there, like Sam, like they had jobs and they had skills and they knew that they could go out. But for the women and for his sisters that left, like
Yeah.
They didn't have that, and so the idea of going
It's
out
difficult.
and they don't have an education and they don't have job experience makes it so much harder. So when they're emotionally being told like
Yeah.
these bad things can happen to you in the world, and I know a lot of them were told like if you go out into that world you will be raped, you'll become a whore, like all these awful things to try to discourage them. The idea that if they went out there, these horrible things were
Yeah.
going to happen to them.
And some families were even more intense than my family was. My family was just, yeah, I mean, they definitely would talk about things like, oh, you're going to be on Satan's ground, he's going to have control over you, and all that. So that definitely was also the same in my family. But I've heard of some families that would be a lot more, I guess, intense with
Way
the
more
with
intense.
the things that they would tell their children would happen to them, and obviously it would scare anyone from leaving. But I think a lot of these kids and people that were trying to leave, once they had other siblings that left and talked with those siblings and realized, hey, this isn't as bad as we were told it was going to be, then that was easier for them to make that step to move out.
Yeah, we've even, some of Sam's siblings that have left after and had stayed with us and things had even said like, okay, after spending some time with you guys, realizing that people on the outside like are kind and nice and
Yeah, but
willing
you
to
can
do nice
actually
things,
live a
and it's
happy
not
life.
scary, and we can be
Yeah.
happy, and
Yeah.
so that's like always good for
Yeah.
them to be able to see. But obviously, if you're the first ones leaving, you're not going to have the opportunity to really
Right.
see that as much.
Right, and even when I left, I'd had a couple older brothers that had left before me. They were quite a bit older than me, so I didn't have a super close relationship with them. So I didn't move in with them when I moved out or anything like that. So anyway, but at least I knew and had talked a little bit with them that, and it seemed like they were happy, you know. And so that
Yeah.
was something where I didn't feel like I was going to leave and fall off the deep end and anyway, just have someone control my life because I would have no control over it, as we were told. But um, I don't know. I definitely still, when I moved out though, I still planned on moving back at some point, just because of the way I was taught and told that if I don't live this certain way, I would never be able to return back to God or to live with our Heavenly Father. So I definitely, in the back of my mind, still thought, you know what, I'm going to move out, experience life a little bit more, and then I'll go back, because in my mind at that time, I thought that's the only way that I could return to.
Yeah, that mentality runs deep, right? Like that
Yep.
kind of guilt and
Yeah,
stuff.
and if
so
you're raised that way, it's very, very
Yeah.
strong.
your
Yeah.
entire life. But
Yeah.
as far as the God Squad goes,
Yes, back to that.
any other last thoughts on that? Oh, I was gonna ask too. So as far as we kind of talked about the physical like restraining or anything, but you said a lot of times they were like people's eyes, like around the community. Was that to ever keep people in line, like to make sure that they felt like more watched? Like, what would be an example of something that you'd be scared of them seeing you do?
Yes, so definitely it was, and a lot of it was if they saw you doing something you shouldn't do. For example, let's say a guy was with a girl, and they were, I don't know.
They could just be talking and it would be against
smooching in
the
the truck or
rules.
something. Who knows? Who knows? But even talking is against the rules. So if you see a guy and a girl together that they're not married, I don't believe that the so-called God Squad would ever actually get out of the truck and walk over there and say, hey, you can't be together. But what they would do is report back to the leaders of the church that this person is not obeying the rules, and then they'd get in trouble for that.
Gotcha. So yes, the God Squad was real. That may not be what they were called out there, but
Yeah.
definite security, definite eyes on the people, definitely trying
it
to
seemed like there were
keep outsiders out.
Yeah,
a little bit of everything,
exactly.
right?
And it seemed like because it was such a small community, everyone knew everyone, and it was you couldn't get away with anything. It felt like, I mean, I snuck out with a girl once, and I before I got back home, my mother knew exactly where I was and with whose girl I was, and it was just like everyone knew everyone, and so her mom called my mom, and it was just it was
Can't get away with
pretty
a lot.
crazy, yeah. Everyone somehow found out about anything you did. So anyway, I don't know a whole lot more about it. Like I say, I was never put on the God Squad or in charge of security of any kind, so I don't know all the details of that, but I do know that there were people out there following people around and kind of keeping an eye on the community.
Yeah. So if you guys want to hear more stories about what it was like for Sam growing up in polygamy, please like and subscribe. And if you have more questions regarding this video or any questions just in general, please leave them in the comments section. We love questions. It gives us ideas for the next video. So
yeah, and we'll try to keep up with those comments. They keep coming in. Thank you so much. And
yes.
we will answer those or make videos about those questions as soon as we can. So
yep. Have a great night.
Thank
and
you.
We'll talk to y'all soon.
We'll talk to you soon.